Hi, and welcome to History Spark. And this is part 2B for my list of top 10 historical Netflix shows you can watch on the platform right now. And in this video, I will give my top 5 recommendations for the genre. In the description below, I have the video links for my choices 10 to 6 and other top historical TV show lists I have created previously, so feel free to check those out as well. At number 5, we have The Last Tsar, which is based around the Romanov family, the last royal family in Russia's history, and it follows the life of Nicholas II, who was the last Tsar till he was deposed in the Russian Revolution. I have to admit, I really enjoyed this show because this was the first show that I had ever seen about the Russian Revolution, and this was an area of history I was totally unfamiliar with, and this show did a fantastic job of explaining the political situation, the social unrest, and the general attitude of the common folk towards the royal family of Russia. This show has only 6 episodes, which means the plot moves along at a rapid pace, and we are quickly thrown into a story which has us in the peak of a revolution. The acting in this show by the main cast is amazing. The story is true to the history and does not take many liberties with the historical facts, which I really did appreciate, as the Russian Revolution is important and interesting enough to not require any additional padding or historical mistruths by the producers or Netflix. I do think that Russian history in general is very often overlooked, and I hope the success and the positive buzz around The Last Tsar brings more Russian history to our screens. And at number 4, we have Medici, which is based around the House of Medici, a powerful Italian family who had considerable political and societal influence during the Italian Renaissance, due in large part to their extreme wealth and vast business and political connections. This show takes place in Florence, and the story begins in 1429 after the death of Giovanni de' Medici and his son Cosimo taking control of the family bank and having to deal with different political and religious intrigues and plots to ensure his family bank retains its wealth and power as one of the richest banks in Europe. Seasons 2 and 3 of Medici are based around Cosimo's grandsons and follows their journey to reform the family bank after years of mismanagement, and the political unrest in Florence is also a background scene that continues to take place throughout the show, which not only continues to put the wealth of the Medici family at risk, but their lives as well. So if you like a show that is a bit slower, takes its time to slowly develop the plot and not overdo it with over-the-top action scenes, but keep the focus on conversations and how words can make or break people's lives and even society itself, then this is the show for you. And at number 3, we have Narcos, a fascinating story which follows the rise and fall of the drug kingpin Pablo Escobar as he becomes a billionaire and one of the richest people in the world, while also simultaneously becoming one of the most wanted fugitives across many countries in the world, including Colombia and America. The first season of Narcos focuses on Pablo Escobar's start in the cocaine industry, which occurred in the late 70s, and depicts the rise of the Medellin cartel and the political, financial, and societal power this organization eventually gets in Colombia. A large part of this show is depicted through the viewpoint of 2 real DEA agents, Steve Murphy and Javier Pena. It shows how difficult it was for the DEA to actually capture Pablo due to his strong political connections and the genuine fear he instilled in all his enemies and the general populace of Colombia as well. So without giving anything else away, I will make a final comment about Narcos, saying it follows the trajectory of Pablo's narcotics career very accurately, and if you want a show that will depict the worldwide corruption drugs has caused, and also has a cast of characters that you will genuinely love because of the realism they bring to the show, then this is a strong binge-worthy recommendation for you. At number 2, we have Troy, Fall of a City, which is based around the Trojan War and depicts the siege of Troy, which is suggested to take place around 13th century BC. I would like to point out though that this TV miniseries does not follow the siege of Troy as depicted in the Iliad or Odyssey, but is a totally unique perspective on the Greek mythos by the producers and showrunners. So therefore, it is also fair to assume that this show will be very different from the usual Trojan War source materials that we are quite familiar with, and will also be very liberal with the history it is trying to tell, which for me makes the casting of black actors to be Zeus and Achilles acceptable, as this show does not follow the description of characters as they are described in the Iliad. But carrying on, Troy Fall of a City is a huge budget show and is one of the most expensive TV shows ever created by the BBC. So it does feel very epic and has some magnificent set pieces, costume design, and detailed historical architecture we don't get often within these historical type shows. And this is fantastic to see because it makes Troy a very beautiful and colorful show to watch. But there are a few shortcomings to go along with all this high budget praise, such as the acting from some of the characters, primarily Paris and Helen, is terrible, and they just don't do a good job of bringing two of the most critical players in the saga to life. My other qualm with this show is the need to include gods and goddesses, as it just adds an additional layer of complexity to the show, which is unnecessary, and it does very little to move the actual plot line forward. And if 90% of the scenes with the gods were removed, very little of the actual storyline would have changed. But besides from those small criticisms, the battle scenes are magnificent, the storyline is interesting, and it really does grip the viewer very quickly into the show's beginning. And it also brings a fresh spin on a story that has been told dozens of times already. So if you're looking for a fantastic reproduction of Troy, then this is my recommendation for you. At the number 1 spot, we have Rise of Empires Ottoman, and I have to say this show came as a genuine surprise to me. I saw the trailer for it and I thought it looked interesting enough, as it had the usual documentary TV show style that Netflix does quite regularly in its historical shows. Rise of Empires is a fascinating drama which really brings the Ottoman and Byzantine empires to our TV screens in all their glory. This show gives you regular input from some bigwigs in a suit, which will provide some comment and historical context to the story which is taking place on the screen, bringing even more historical context to the show. The primary focus of this show is around Ottoman Emperor Mehmed the Conqueror and his epic desire to be able to conquer Constantinople. This show has a strong storyline which consistently moves at a strong pace. It has some excellent acting by the entire cast and the most appropriate use of narrators I have seen in a show so far. This show will keep you at the edge of your seat for all 6 episodes, and you will actually want someone to come on and narrate for you to provide you with some further context and details to explain the historical significance of the events taking place on the screen. My only critique for this show is that I wish it was longer, cause 6 episodes of this level of excellence is just not enough. I would say Rise of Empires Ottoman is one of my top 5 historical TV shows of all time, and is one I cannot recommend highly enough. So lastly, I would say thanks for watching this video, and I hope you found it helpful and enjoyable. Please feel free to check out some of my other historical TV show lists in the description below. And please like, share, and subscribe to History Spark to stay up to date with all the latest historical TV shows and historical news. Thank you.